to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have 4 board members present. Mr. Reed is not with us this evening. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda? Or any changes that need to be made to it?
There are 2 indicated. K2 needs to be removed. There were no resignations after publication. K3F is also a personnel, a substitute cook, and it is indicated on the agenda as well. I ask that you remove those and then approve the agenda.
Mrs. Key makes the motion. Mr. Caldwell seconds. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Do we have a motion on the minutes for September 9th, 2024 for their approval? Mr. Howell makes the motion. Mr. Nelson will second. Is there any discussion? Not all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And we also need to approve the minutes from our September 11th special meeting. Do we have a motion for approval? Mr. Nelson makes the motion. Mrs. King will second. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Delegations,
We have none.
none present. Next, we will have the superintendent's report and academic updates.
So tonight in front of you, you have a couple of sheets of paper, actually 3, but there are 2 in particular that we want to start with. I ask that you pull them in front of you, and I'll show you which ones I want to look at. And the first one says, it looks like this, and then I want this one to the side. You're going to kind of have these 2 and go back and forth. Okay? I'm going to spend just a little bit of time on this tonight, and then when Mr. Clevenger is here at the next meeting, he's going to delve a little bit further into this. But I want to spend some time on the accountability indicator fact sheet, because we are still reviewing some of our reports that we get back this time of the year based on how our balanced score sheet and our reports turned out from all of our data from last year. And so this past week, they released our balanced scorecard. It is online, you can look at it. I've kind of created a couple of documents for us to look at. We haven't gotten the official pretty document from the state yet, so I created these partially to go over and remind you the indicators that they look at, and because if you don't spend time with this all the time, you kind of forget what they are. And so we're going to start with the one that's horizontal, and if you start at the top, and we talk the most about academic indicators, and we talk about the GSA, remember that's the test that the kids take in the spring. And if you look straight across, it talks about the measured performance on the annual statewide assessment. And actually, I don't know, Tom can't see so the very first line, it talks about academic indicators, and in that line, you know we look at ELA and math, right? So as you go out through there, it tells you, it's looking at the current grades 3 through 8, is who takes the GSA, grade 11, you know, takes the SAT, and then it shows you you have kids that, or the county you'll either get doesn't meet standards, partially meet standards, exceed standards. So all this looks familiar, right? Yeah. And then each of the schools get measured the same way. You'll get an English score and a math score. You'll get, and then this one breaks it down even further. And we're going to look at the other indicators. So when we presented earlier, we're 7th in the state. It was based solely on academic achievement. How we did on GSA, SAT, overall academic performance. So it was all from that one indicator. So now the balanced scorecard looks at a lot of different things. And so tonight we're going to look at other indicators that we are also judged on. And I'm going to kind of explain the 10 factors that they look at. What I did was I also took so on the other sheet of paper, it looks like this. This shows you our actual percentages we got, and then I put in bold where we met on the one on the right, where we finished, like if we're partially meet standards, if we're meet standards, or if we exceed standards. So the boxes show you where we fell. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So can you read our charts?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm giving you data for the county as a whole. And then next week, Mr. Clevenger will break it down more in individual, like looking at some of the school data, more so than possibly just this.
Right, what about English learner progress?
So when I get to, I'll explain that to you.
It's in that A, I bet it's because they're coming out.
There you go. So you have to have so many in a certain cell size. If you don't have at least 10 in a cell size or 20, whatever the cell size needs to be, then you are not judged on that cell size. So we are not applicable on that because we don't have enough in that cell size to be monitored in that. So if you look at the second one down, it's academic progress. So it looks at a student, if they're in the fourth, let's say they're in the 5th grade, they'll look at how they did on the 4th grade test, and they'll see if they showed improvement. And so they're saying we had, in math or ELA, we had 42 to 44% of our kids, depending on which one of those, showed growth from one year to the next. So they're showing academic growth, and they look at specific kids and say that they're actually showing growth, and they're looking at specific kids. Does that make sense? So that's what that indicator is. Then they look at graduation rate. This is for our high schools. They say, we're breaking it down. We're looking at 4-year percentage of students graduating, and then we're looking at 5-year. And they look at cohorts of kids. They look at the previous 1 year, or they look at 2 years. And they say, are you at, in one of them you can see we're at 97%, and one we're at 90%. So one we exceed the standards, and one we meet the standards. Then we look at attendance. If you recall, last year, we were in all of this, we were in the yellow, blue or green and everything, except for attendance. Last year, we were in the red. This year, we are in yellow, red, and green in every standard, including attendance. I mean, not red. Yes,
Not red.
not red. We are not red this year. Last year, we were red in attendance. So we've shown improvement in the one standard that we fell short last year, which was attendance. And so in behavior, you'll see that we are meet standards, and then on track to graduate. They actually look at the cohort of 10th graders. And 10th graders, they say you must have this many credits at this point in your 10th grade year. And we see how many of our 10th graders have the number of credits they need to be on track to graduate the time they're seniors. And they look at what percentage that is, and currently we're running at 95.2% of the students on track to graduate. So that way you know if your graduation rate in a couple of years looks pretty promising. And so it's a measure of success, and it's not just looking at one data point, it's looking at multiple data points in your county to show that you are overall doing a good job and not just with the one academic key point. And then the last one, Kelly and I looked at this 2 or 3 times, and we went back and had to dig a little farther because this number's fluctuated a little bit. Used to be, we were a little higher when it first came out, but they've added a piece to it, we think. And that is, you have to have an AP class or college dual credit class, and have an A, B, or C in the college dual credit class. Or you have to be a CTE completer, and this is the additional piece, you have to have a certain score on the NOCTI test. And so I think that's why maybe our percentages, it's still good compared to the state, but it's a little lower than what it used to be. And I think that one piece is added an element to it. But I still think we're pretty good. We're at about 63.7%, so we're close to meeting standards on that.
So a lot of CTE data shows that some students are just taking 1 year of a program and not going through, so they're not getting
Correct.
to completer status.
I
So
agree.
my understanding was several CTE programs were switching from 1 year to 2
That is
programs.
correct.
Is that also possibly reflected there?
Yes, and then they're not high school.
No.
One of the things that Mr. Clevenger and I looked at, and I have it on a sheet of paper, I've done 1,000 things today, and I didn't grab it to bring it out here, so I'm gonna be a little upset with myself. In the red, there were only, and I'm gonna get this number wrong, and I'm gonna feel bad about it, so I'm probably gonna check it in a minute. I'm gonna say there were only 8, I'm gonna say 8 to 11, I can't remember the exact number, counties in the state of West Virginia that didn't have anything in the red. We were one of them, so I thought that was impressive. The other thing we did, because we like data, and we played with this, we took there are 10 factors. You wanna know how so we know we were 7th overall, just straight data. So we took this data that we got from this chart, and we converted each of the key elements, because we get a chart of every county in the state and how they did. And we took all of the point totals and we converted them to equal points out of 1,000. And then we made it into a predictability, how we did overall. And once again, looking at all of our point values, we would have finished 7th overall in the state of all of the indicators, just for you. I said, Jason will want to know how we did overall. And so some of the counties that finished, and I guess why that was important to us to see, was do we have an outline data point that changes something that we need to focus on, that let's say your graduation rate was really low, and that's something that you need to focus on because let's say your GSA scores are really good, your graduation rate's really low, so you think we're performing at 7th overall in the state, but my graduation rate moves me to 18th or 19th. You know, we now know what our focus should be. So we did an average of where we would be statewide if you took that data, and we actually finished 7th overall in this same, looking at these 10 data points, and felt like, you know, we're pretty balanced. Are we where we want to be? No. Do we see some programs and some things that are powerful that we see that are making some changes in our school? Yes. I think attendance across the county has, and we're going to look at that here in a minute, we've done some very impactful things, and we know that if kids aren't in school, we can't learn. And I think that we have been benefiting from student attendance, and I think that is very important. I think we benefit from a community of educators that work hard every day and have challenges. And we talked about at the very beginning when we started looking at data, some of the challenges that we face every day to refocus students, challenges our students face, whether it be socioeconomic or the fact their friends are mad at them, or just very basic things, and the toughness of the world around us. So I think that we have data that shows we're moving in the right direction. Do we want to see more blues and greens? Absolutely. Are we thrilled that if you were here when we started, at times there were lots of red? And we're not going to tell you that as we dig deeper, we're not going to hide anything from you either. When Jacob brings some things next week, or the next board meeting, we're going to show you some areas that we have some new programs going into where we know we have areas of concerns. Tori said the ELA, we don't have enough in that area, but there are some areas that it breaks down even further, that we do have some pockets where we're getting better, but we still need to focus on. And we purchased like a Sunday it's called Sunday program for some of our students, and I think that it will again start showing us some improvements in some areas of need. So I just wanted to kind of remind you what the balanced scorecard is, what the elements of the balanced scorecard looks at, and that this is half of it. And remember, this is the academic portion of it, and then there's the second portion of it that looks at how we run the school system. It looks at findings, it looks at our bus garage, it looks at the operational side of it. And that piece has not come out yet, but it will this fall. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Our 18.9% is very good for attendance, and that leads me into my next thing. Does anyone have any questions? Did that make sense, what I showed you?
It did. Here I go, Tori. I have a problem with the attendance from the state. and I really believe in attendance. Like Andrew missed one day in high school, and that's when the teachers told me he didn't have to come the last day, and they took her off. Betsy had perfect attendance from second grade all the way through middle school and high school. So I had perfect attendance, so I believe in it. But I think, and here's a problem I have now, and of course this didn't carry through with Betsy because she's going on a cruise in November and taking her kids out of school, and she doesn't see anything wrong with that. And I would never have done that, but still, and like Jason went to Hawaii, those are trips that are educational, and at one time you got credit, you weren't counted absent.
That's a state change.
I know, but the state needs to go back to some type of thing because, and nothing against them missing school, but it's a bad mark on our school.
You know your delegates?
I do know him.
Give them a call.
I will. And it's almost like, should you homeschool for a week and a half and then come back in?
No, you should not. Do not say that again.
Okay. Don't say that again. Okay. Well, I will, but I don't know if Trent can do anything about this. It's just that I just think there ought to be some input from the school board association or something that,
Oh, I definitely suggest that you email the school board association executive director
Okay.
and let them know your input, but
Yeah.
also you should contact your local delegates as
But
well.
you see my point, those aren't the kids we're really after anyway. Those are the ones with parents that are exposing to things around the world as an educational
Well,
thing. They're not the attendance people that they embed and.
She's getting ready to talk about attendance. The other piece about that you're not gonna like, Mr. Nelson, is that if your daughter were in school today, the athlete that she was, she would not have perfect attendance now, even though she went to school every day, because of the changes they've made that
So if
impact
she went to the
athletes.
basketball tournament to play for Ritchie County High School, she'd be counted absent?
No, they're not for trips for school. You would be, but maybe to the dentist and things like that, because you're in out, like part days and full days and things like that. And I think part of this came about, and I'm not defending, and I think the best time to have this conversation, and I'm gonna throw him under the bus, is when Jacob Clevenger is here
Yeah.
next week, because or the next meeting, because he is our attendance director, and he's the one that goes to the meetings and hears their justification of reason for changing this. But I do believe that a lot of the changes in attendance came because there is so much evidence that ties achievement and student learning
Oh,
and
yeah.
academics
Exactly, I believe
to attendance.
Oh, yes.
And I think that with that said, there had to be a stricter expectation for attendance in order to change student achievement. And I think because of that, you're right. Some of the things to us who think this seems like it should be this way, could not be that way, because then it seemed to open up more avenues that they didn't want to be. But I think Jacob would be the one that probably could
You
justify
might wanna
it.
go ahead and prepare him for this questions.
I'm not saying
No, it's fine to ask the
Oh, I know, I
question.
think you should ask the questions, and
He could just be
Yeah.
prepared with
Well,
the state changes.
that. Right.
Yes.
And I realize this is all coming from the state.
Yes.
I'm just
Mhm.
hoping this. And there's other people in other counties concerned about this too, with educational trips that their families go on all the time.
You're correct, that change has occurred.
That change has occurred.
Yeah.
One of the things we are doing.
That's all Tori.
One of the things that we are doing, and you have in front of you, if you look at this sheet, is that, Mr. Clevenger is every 20 days, we're doing an overall review of attendance data, countywide, and 3 of the attendance, pieces that we're charged to evaluate and look at, to see where we are as the year progresses, and to do an evaluation on our attendance rate, our chronic absenteeism, and our regular attendance rate. And one of the reasons that we like to look at this is so that we know, as we move on throughout this year, how we're doing, to evaluate the programs that we have in place, how they are affecting the attendance. We do know, like, for an example, early in this year, Ritchie County High School, their regular attendance rate is a little lower. They got hit early on by COVID, and they had their attendance is down a little bit. We understand that. We're hoping in the next 20 days that we don't see that same pattern. But overall, we think that our attendance, our chronic absenteeism rate at this time of the year is much better. Our overall attendance, our goal and our overall attendance in all of these areas compared to this time last year is much better in all these areas. And compared to the state and the expectation, our communities and schools, our principals and our teachers are doing a nice job.
So if you're looking at 20 days,
Mm-hmm.
it's 10% value to equal chronic absenteeism. So you're saying that percentage missed 2 days
Yes.
or more?
So that's gonna be a high percentage because it's such a low number.
Right.
Right.
And as the year expands.
That should go down, so you expect this to be even a higher number than this. So we were very impressed that that's what it is.
So since you did break them out, how do you define the difference between attendance and regular attendance? Or do we pose that question to Mr. Flood?
Good question. He explained to me today. Let's see. One of them is regular I'm gonna get it backwards. Regular attendance throughout the school year. The rate is a percentage and the attendance is the days. And I probably got it backwards. I don't have those things.
Well, you can add that to the list for
For
this
Mr.
next
Clement.
explanation.
I probably said it backwards.
Okay. Any other questions on attendance, Mr. Nelson, or anything else?
I agree with what you were saying on that, the educational leave stuff, and I'm sure there's abusers of that.
Oh, yeah.
And that's probably why
You're
we
right.
changed the law. I'm sure that's why.
But it is important to let your voice be heard because
Yes.
someone,
I've never been there.
someone has let their voice be heard for a change to occur.
That's correct.
And for there to be anything that causes it to change back, then the other voices have to be heard as well.
Yep.
And that's all I
Anything
have to
else?
say.
Okay, great. Next we have director reports, and first is Carrie Rice, Director of Operations and Management.
I've already talked, so I won't pick.
I know, I was like, not it tonight, I'm pretty excited. I am lucky, I don't know how that works.
Just let it go.
I know, and it's coming, so I'll be fully prepared. There's a couple things that I have for you to hand out after I make my announcement, I suppose, but this is simply just a statement for Ritchie County Schools. In recent events, they have brought up the topic of school safety into everyday conversations throughout our community. Ritchie County Schools is dedicated to maintaining the safety of our students, our staff, and our community through the implementation of proactive prevention measures. Ritchie County Schools construct each policy and procedure following West Virginia Department of Education and West Virginia legislative guidance. Each prevention tool implemented is research-based and continually monitored and evaluated with safety as the district's top priority. As part of the county's proactive approach, staff and students are provided with online training in conflict resolution, positive behavior intervention, bullying and harassment recognition, and other social and emotional well-being trainings. In addition to the social and emotional trainings, Ritchie County Schools also hosts regular meetings with its local first responders to collaborate regarding the latest updates pertaining to school safety. Please know that Ritchie County Schools will continue to move school safety forward by implementing research-based procedures that make school safety more reliable, consistent, and effective. All changes made in regards to school safety will be done with purpose and great consideration. While our district works to continue to build upon existing school safety procedures, we ask that families remind their children about the importance of school safety and digital citizenship while we all remain connected and vigilant. I do want to give you all a few of the brochures from the West Virginia State Schools Helpline that our kids also have access to, so that you're familiar with what the West Virginia Department of Education has put out statewide.
What you said was very important.
Thank you. From the last meeting that I was in, which was right at the beginning of school, one of the big topics was our child nutrition program and how wonderful I've heard things have been going and how it's been received.
School safety, can I?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I love what you said, very good. The scare that was on Facebook, it was statewide, right? Was a hoax, as far as I know, and then it was compounded by lots of other things that I probably don't know all about, but it won't be the last time that's happened. And I don't know how we can be more in front of garbage like that on social media and be quicker to squash fears. I don't know the answers to that. I know I saw posts on Facebook that were things like, oh, this is why I'm looking into homeschooling, or oh, this is why I think this and this. And I understand that, and I respect people's opinion to do that, of course, but it was all because of a bunch of fear-mongering hoax baloney on social media. Too many people get their information that way. So if we can be more in front of that, or figure out a good attack plan for that stuff, it'd be great.
And I think what you're seeing now is just exactly what Ms. Rice just said, and what you see across the state of West Virginia, and that is what we hope as well in this county, and many of you who also have children in our school system, is that we as the adults continue to monitor our children and advise them and educate them, whether it be at school or at home, that we understand the power of social media and the power of our words, and that we continue to use our words and social media in a way that does not cause fear and potential harm to others. And what we are seeing across the nation is that when students have chosen to use it in that manner, that they have been held accountable for such actions. And we have been blessed to this point to have had the support of our community and have had families and the school system that has programs in place to help support that. And with the directive that has come from the state of West Virginia, we will continue to offer programs like that in order to hopefully continue to do just what you said and continue to offer good support and advice to our children and families to make good choices. Is that
Yeah. Well, I think the other option is that we can take the statement that you all have addressed as the state, your stand on security and safety in schools, and put it on the website as a place for people to
Yeah, it just needs to be quickly addressed as best we can, yeah. And I think we did that, I don't know.
I think we can put that
It's a-
statement on the website now, though.
It won't be, this'll keep happening, stuff like this, it will only get worse as far as social media goes. People start learning that they can affect so many people in a negative way, they get enjoyment from that, and that's what's wrong with the world, but how we combat that is, we need to be smart about it.
And I think the connectivity that this community has with one another, between its parents and its students, its teachers, its staff, is paramount to the success.
I don't know if this would be out of order or not, but with everything that you said, can that be sent home? You know, when we send home things to students because to reassure people, and, I mean, you told all the details of the training and the everything that may.
And I think we're working with that with our PROs right now. We're continuing to work with some procedures and some detailed expectations, and I think some of that will follow, as part of our overall plan.
It might be a good idea if they receive a letter from you.
Because when I've tried to reassure people, and I didn't begin to have everything said to them like you've told us, you know, to make them more comfortable that we have done so much training and you know, the relationship we have with our teachers, with the students, with each other and that kind of thing. I tried to tell them things, but I didn't do a very good job explaining.
I like what you're saying, Denny, maybe something to reassure parents.
Yeah,
all
I think they
those
would be.
things.
I think they heard, the ones I talked to that I hadn't talked to, heard all that you said. I think they would be much more assured that efforts are being in place to do the best we can.
When you send your global text out to parents, are you allowed to put a hyperlink in that? I wonder. That would, also, you could use that in addition to link to a document on the website that had all that too. I don't know. Just curious.
Any other questions? Thank you for your comments. Child nutrition, the good news about lunch and breakfast, super exciting. I pulled some data through the cooperation of the Office of Child Nutrition and the site meal participation statistics and data. Breakfast at the high school, the comparison between August of '23 versus August of '24, and also keeping in mind as a little bit of a disclaimer, August is a pretty tough month for participation for most schools across the state, only because it's the beginning of school, etc. However, our breakfast participation increased by 9.04%. Our breakfast at the middle school from August 23 to August 24 increased by 7.74%. Lunch at Ritchie County High School increased by 9.16%. And our lunch participation increased at the middle school 5.29%. So I'm very, very pleased.
I will say, my son loves your lunches. Towards the end of last year, they were improving, and if he were here, he would give an overall improvement excellent.
Well, I heard the cinnamon rolls were pretty awesome this morning too.
Okay.
So I'll have to ask, but.
The pizzas, the amount of food served now is much better than last year. He's just happy, him and his friends are happy.
I know that the kitchen staff and we have a new head cook, and they are working diligently to do the right thing, so I'm really proud of them.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lori Wells, Chief School Business Official and Treasurer.
My stuff's not quite as exciting. Sorry.
That's all right.
My comment to Carrie's was, which is our funds that we are allowed to utilize. They're unrestricted funds for us, so this is our general and our excess levy. Everything else, all the other funds are pretty well restricted, so your Fund 61, which is your federal programs, you have Fund 71, which is our ESSER money, and then, we have Fund 65, which is the schools funds, and then we have Fund 21, which is our debt fund, and then Fund 51, which is our capital improvements line. So, really, the bottom line is our Fund 11 as to what we can utilize or need to set aside. So at the beginning of FY '24, we had 10.2 million as our general fund balance. So in FY '24, we received 23.4 million in revenue, and we spent 16.7 in expenditures. We transferred out from Fund 11 to balance child nutrition at 372,137. We transferred out for energy amount, our payment of $115,300, and then transferred out into Fund 51 for towards our bus garage, which is $500,000. And then you'll see a transfer in. This is an indirect cost rate that gets associated with any kind of federal grant. And so that indirect cost rate comes back into our general fund, and that was $304,241. So the total fund balance for Fund 11 was 16.2 million. So to kind of break down that 16.2 million, there's a prepaid, it's brim asset. So what happens with that, when you see that prepaid, it means that we had to pay it in FY '24, but it's actually for FY '25, so it's prepaid ahead. And that was $27,371. We have restricted funds, which are our remaining levy funds. So this is our carryover of 4.8 million. Committed funds, these are when we budget, this is what we budget as committed, which is our bus replacement funds, our Step 7 and Step 7B, and that's 567,000. We have committed remaining general funds. This is any funds that we've received from like outside sources, so any kind of donations or like technology buybacks that we're setting aside for special projects or special funds. That's 138,000. And then we have encumbered funds. So these are funds that were encumbered at year end, but they're going to be spent out in this fiscal year. And that was 553,000. So our total unassigned balance is 10 million, and all of that balance is back to our fund balance of 16.2. So if you flip to the second page, I put our balance sheet with it so that you can kind of see some of the numbers or where they come from, but you'll see the different funds at the top, the Fund 11, Fund 61, 65, 71, and 51. So that just basically shows you that under Fund 11, it does balance back to the front sheet. So then, moving on to the next page should look like this. There's a little box up at the top. So, our levy allocations that we received for regular and excess was 16.8 million last year. The assessed valuations that we were told or anticipated to receive was supposed to be 17.4 million. So therefore, we didn't collect as much as what they said that we should. So we had a shortfall of 521,000. So I did a lot of research and reaching out. So I reached out to the Department of Ed, the state tax office, the assessor's office, our county tax office, and the county commission to figure out what the shortfall was for the collections. And so it was discovered that in October of 2023, there's a form that was completed that's a basic state aid adjustment questionnaire for uncollectibles. and it was emailed by the assessor to the state tax office stating that there was a 4.1 million adjustment in property tax that was not going to be collected. So what happens with that is once it's submitted, then it goes to the State Department of Education, and that's when they start doing their allocations for next year. So, that's the reason why this year we received state aid, is that they are making the adjustments for our regular levy that was not collected in the prior year. As far as it comes to our excess levy, we will have to adjust our balance by $238,000, which is what is not collected. But I'm continuing to contact the assessor's office and the county commission that if this was to occur again this year, they submit a form. I think some sort of communication needs to be given to us or to whoever is involved so that you can prepare accordingly and not get to the end and, have a shortfall. But, lots of times they said they don't know until at the end as well. But, I wanted to provide that information to you, and there's a letter that, the assessor provided as well as the form that is attached there. Does anyone have any questions on these?
And that will appear later on the agenda.
So the transfer out of energy that's on the first page, is that still a savings contract, the energy savings
Yes,
contract?
that's the thing.
Are we close to the end of that term? No,
because we're refunding.
Is that forever? Okay. They're normally like 15 years or so, right?
Yeah. I'd have to look to see how many years in we are.
But not
Close.
nearly,
Yeah.
yeah.
Not yet.
Would you at some point in time, and not right now, would you at some point in time be able to tell us if we are saving as a result?
I think that I can tell you that through our budget, as far as our electric, now I can't, it's hard for the water because we had a lot of water leaks. So it's really hard to know that one. But the electric one, the budget has not been as high as it has been in the past. But I could probably do some research and find that out for you.
We ought to be saving on that parking lot lights.
What?
Jenny.
Well, they're energy efficient and they're dimmer, so we're not using as much electricity. The parking lot, the high school parking lot.
I would expect it would be more in electricity and gas than it would be in water usage anyway.
Well, they did switch out some of the water, yeah, some of that, but.
Does the heat wave cause more in air conditioning or is it?
Well, it causes our air conditioning to run more, so I'm
Yeah,
sure.
I was wondering if it was a big amount, it'd be higher electric bill just because of that.
I think our electric bill this time, I think, at least for this month, I think it was 30,000.
Thank you very much for your explanation. Next, we have the consent agenda.
Under under the consent agenda, we have some of the regulars, volunteers, which we always like to see. We have some in-lieu transportation, Florida teacher coverage, an additional off-campus practice location, an agreement with West Virginia University at Parkersburg for clinical student field placement and residency teachers, as well as an agreement with Normal State College for dual credit pathway through Grow Your Own, and an agreement with West Florida and Ritchie County Schools for student internship. Then we have 8, 9, 10, and 11, which are all students at WVUP for either student learning hours or for some observation hours through education program. And then number 12, who is an employee who also needs to do some student internship modules with us at Pierceville Elementary. I ask that you approve the consent items as listed on the agenda.
Yeah. Question? Am I allowed to approve a second cousin?
You are, because there's nothing financial related to it, it's just a total for observation.
Very good.
That they were asking. Mrs. Key is making a motion to approve the consent agenda items. Do we have a second? Mr. Howell, second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, do you, what is it? Do you want to? Next, we have personnel resignations.
We have 2 resignations, Ashley Simmons as a restricted sub and Darren Bailey as a substitute custodian.
Do we have a motion for approval of the resignations as stipulated on the record? Mr. Nelson makes a motion. Mr. Hall, is your pen up, please? Yes. Mr. Hall will second the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we have employments or other.
And we have 1 FMLA for approval, and Terry Williams as a multi-cat LD teacher at Ritchie County High School, Kim Britton as a substitute teacher. Would you like to welcome Kim Britton back? Jessica Moore, substitute cook, Belinda McCroskey, substitute cook, Kim Gugant as an aide, Kenny Church as the head boys basketball coach, and Ed Martin as the bus driver for Upward Bound. I ask that you approve those as listed on the agenda.
The superintendent is recommending that we approve the employments as stipulated on the record. Do we have a motion for approval? Mr. Hall makes a motion, Mrs. King will second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we have payment of bills in the amount of $452,841.23. Do we have a motion for approval? Mr. Hall makes a motion. Mrs. King will second. Is there any discussion? Not all of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we have financial requests for approval.
The first one is to approve what Mrs. Wells just went over, which is our FY '24 financial statements. Number 2 is to approve an agreement between Holly Mays, Lou Mays, for Harrisville. And it says for 2 tracts or parcels of land, which is 3.52 acres, the amount of $300,000. And as you read the purchase agreement, as you all are aware, that is for the current area where our bus garage is. It is for the bus garage and the land around it, as well as the electric that's there, everything that sets on those 2 parcels of land. I wanted to clarify that because that's what's stipulated on the purchasing agreement. If you're unaware, you all are very much aware of this, the community may not be. We did not own our bus garage. And a school system, in order for us to provide updates and to guarantee that we have a location to have a bus garage, we, as under your direction and hard work, we have secured a place to continue to have a bus garage. And we've been able to work with you and Holly in order to obtain our current location, which will allow us to continue with our current routes, our current places in order to keep our buses and be able to maintain our current operations. It also will allow us to make a better working condition for our employees. So we are pleased to move forward with that with your approval here in a few minutes, but just wanted to clarify that is what that purchase is. And the other thing on that, the next one goes along with that, which is an approval of a resolution to acquire the real estate as listed above. And then to approve the sealed bids for the double cab maintenance truck and the snow plow. And that was who won the sealed bid was with Beam Motors. And we are declaring a golf cart, the old one that was at the high school, to go out for sale on a sealed bid. And then also to declare some old technology, 150 access points, 35 switches, 1 web filter, 1 wireless controller, 10 servers as surplus property for recycling or disposal. ask that you approve the financial request.
The superintendent is requesting that we approve the financial request as stipulated on the record. Do we have a motion for approval? Mr. Nelson makes a motion, Mrs. King will second. Is there any discussion? I think it's also good to note that in relation to the purchase of the property for the bus garage, this will allow us to, as Mrs. Hott alluded to, make much needed improvements to that property. And also note that for years we had worked with the
I had, yes, there was a quick report from Malachi and Mr. Reed. He was going to give a report, he is not here, so I'd like to get a quick one for him. Just to let you know, they also reviewed their financial statements for the 2024 school year. Their, basically what Mrs. Huff reported for Malachi was their current ratio was 7.6%, which they normally need to carry about 2%, which is what the state suggests. This denotes that they're in good financial health. They've been above 5% for the last 5 years. Their unassigned balance, the West Virginia Department of Ed recommends 3 to 5%. The GFOA recommends 16%. Malachi is well above that at 28.7%. The last few years, Malachi has been able to reduce 1/4 of the local share for the counties, so we haven't had to contribute as much because of their financial stability. And the main takeaway from their financial statement is that they're very fiscally sound and that Dr. Hott has done a nice job with their financials, and they've been able to secure some grants. And this year, a lot of his goals will be to replace some equipment and to continue to add some programs and to evaluate some programs. But I just wanted to give a report